Hello everyone and welcome to game 4 of yesterday's match between Maxime CVachier-Lagrave and Magnus Carlsen. Sorry about that, let me just rewind it. As you've seen in the match so far, Magnus won the third game, which means that now Maxime has to win game 4 in order to force tiebreak. So game 1 and game 2 ended in a draw, and Magnus only needs a draw here with the black pieces, and he could play some sort of a boring Berlin and just force a draw, but no, he decided to go for the Sicilian defense again. As we've had the Sicilian defense in all four games, and sometimes the position is just so fun to play. You don't want to draw, you actually want to win the position. So let's see what happened here. We have pawn to e4 and pawn to c5. Magnus again goes for the Sicilian defense. Knight f3, e6, d4, the open Sicilian, captures, and knight to f6. We have knight to c3, and Magnus opts for the Taimanov variation of the Sicilian. We have knight captures on c6. Knight to d to b5 is the most popular still, but Maxime wants to mix it up as he has to play for the win here. B captures, and now pawn to e5, knight d5, and now knight to e4. So all been seen before, nothing new here. Usually bishop to b7 is not the move that is played here right away. It is queen to c7 to stop the immediate knight to d6, but this is exactly what Magnus invites in. He plays bishop to b7, and now Maxime does not shy away from knight to d6 check. And of course you have to capture this. If you don't, you're just gonna lose material with pretty much whatever white plays. If you go king to e7, like c4 even, or just knight captures on b7 is fine. So you have to capture it. E captures, and now pawn to c5. Magnus opens up this diagonal. We have pawn to c4, and now knight to b4, immediately challenging the knight. Pawn to e3, knight back to c6, and now bishop to e3. So this pawn got all the way to d6 already till move 10. So we'll see if Magnus can do something about it. We have queen to f6, putting pressure on the b2 pawn, queen to d2 defending, and now rook to b8, getting ready to move the bishop and to put even more pressure on that b2 pawn. Bishop captures on c5, and now there is a game where queen to e5 check was played. It was played between Ray Robson and Boris Gelfand. Boris Gelfand played queen to e5 check here, but he lost the game. It was played actually this year, some 3 months ago in the Prague Chess Festival, but here Magnus goes bishop to b8, bishop to a8, and it is now, as of move 15, that we have a completely new game. So now MVL has to deal with the b2 pawn hanging. He plays bishop to b4, cuts off the rook, and now queen to e5 with check. We have bishop to e2, and knight captures on b4. We have a captures, and bishop captures on g2, attacking the rook. And now, well, you could play rook to g1. Maxime first throws in a rook to a5. It seems like a very nice Zwischenzug as it attacks the queen, but it's actually not the correct move order. The correct move order is rook to g1 because it's much stronger. Now, Magnus would not have the ability to play queen to e4 to just defend the bishop here, because queen g5, and now the bishop and the g7 pawn are hanging, which seems like you could also do starting with rook to a5, but not really. Now Magnus does have rook, queen to e4, and now after rook to g1, he just plays bishop to f3. So much stronger for black. We have rook captures on g7, bishop captures on e2, and now queen captures on e2. Queen to b1 check, queen d1, and now queen captures on b2. We have rook 8 to g5, and now queen captures on b4 with check. King to f1, and queen captures on c4 with check. Magnus is now up 2 pawns, and if there's nothing for Maxime here, and he can maybe somehow get his rook into the game, should be very good for him, but it's easier said than done. We have king g1, rook to f8, and now, believe it or not, this is what Maxime played. He played rook captures on f7, and it doesn't look like something you should be able to do, but the pawn on d6 that got there on move 10, does such a good job here of preventing the king from going anywhere that you can actually do this. The problem with capturing is that you just get checkmated. Rook f8, queen to h5 check, king has to move, and now of course you see the pawn controls all of the squares, and this will now be checkmate. So here you have to guard the f3 square, because the real threat is rook captures on f8 followed by queen to f3. So here queen to e4, Magnus stops queen to f3, and now we have rook g to g7 doubling up, and now if you start checking the black king here, it's all over. So Magnus has to trade here, but now comes rook to g8 check, rook to f8, and queen to h5 h5 with check. Again, Magnus has to part with his queen to g6, and now rook captures. We have h captures, queen captures on g6, king to d8, and now queen to g5 with check. Here, Maxime actually got a very good position because I believe Magnus played this automatically. It's much better to play a weird move like rook to f7, simply because the king is not in a weird position here. With the pawn covering c7 and d7, the black king really doesn't want to be on d8. But okay, Magnus played this, and now Maxime should really start advancing his h-pawn, but he played queen to g5 check, king to c8, and now queen to c5 with check. King to b7, queen to b5 check, king to c8, and queen back to c4 check. King b7, queen to c7 check, king to a6, and queen captures on d7. So he wins a pawn, creates a passed d pawn, and remember, that's the pawn that got there on move 10. So that's why queen to c7 is a much preferred move to Magnus's bishop to b7, because you just don't allow this pawn to survive for this long. Rook f to d8 chases away the queen, queen captures on e6, and now king to b6. Now the problem with rook to b6, you might think, well, let's just win this pawn. It doesn't really work, because after queen to e2 check, or for example queen to a2 check, now you have to play king to b5. Now you're going to play queen to d5 check, nicely centralized, and once the king moves, you're going to play this pawn all the way to d7, and it's very, very difficult to attack it. The problem is now white will start advancing the h-pawn, and if you try to go after the pawn, then queen to c6 check will pick up the rook on b7, and if you defend, then queen to c8 check will pick up this rook, or if you trade, then you just lose a full rook. So that's out of the question. So that's why you can't really go rook to b6. So king to b6 by Magnus. We have queen to e7, and now pawn to a5. Now Magnus starts advancing his passed a-pawn. Queen to c7 check, king to b5, and king to f1. We have pawn to a4, and now king to e2. Maxime says, all right, my only chance if I'm ever going to win this is to actually bring my king into the game, because pushing my pawn is just too slow. We have pawn to a3, king to d3, and now rook to a8. Magnus puts a rook behind the passed pawn. It would be a bit more precise to first claim the c and the b file for the rooks, kick away the queen as far as possible, and then put the rook on a8 if it's needed at all. But okay, he goes rook to a8 right away, king to d4, and now pawn to a2. We have queen to b7 check, king to a4, now threatening pawn to a1. This will queen with check, but now queen to b2, stopping the queening of the a-pawn. And here Magnus should just play a1 queen. He has to get his king off of the a-file, and he should just play a1 whatever piece, queen, knight, bishop, rook, doesn't really matter. And once the queen captures, you get to safety with king to b5, and next you're going to capture the pawn on d6. So that's the way to a draw. However, Magnus played rook captures on d6 with check, and this just blunders the game away, because now Maxime plays king to c5, and look at the problem here. Checkmate is being threatened, and also the rook is being threatened. You can deliver one check, rook to c8 check, but then again the rook comes off, and there's no way to play this. So Magnus played rook to b6. It's one last attempt at tricking Maxime, which you know, you have three options here. You either lose the game, win the game, or draw the game here. If you play queen captures on b6, then rook to c8 check will allow for a draw, because after the king moves, you will play rook to c1, and now there is no way for white to actually win this. Another really cool move is that after rook to b6, if you play king captures, then of course rook to b8 check will win Maxime's queen, and then it's Magnus who wins the game. But Maxime says, I want none of this. That's a really silly move. Just queen captures on a2 is checkmate. So this is what I'm going to play, as the white king is boxing in the black king. So that's pretty much it. So Magnus won game 3, but he lost game 4, as you've seen here. So he had the draw, but it seems that at some point he just liked his position too much and wanted to play for a win. But it didn't go his way. And then in the Armageddon, let me just, I don't want to trick you guys. Let me just check the exact order of moves. In the Armageddon, of course, as you already know, Magnus won the match. Magnus had the black pieces. He was able to get a draw after some 54 moves. He was better for the entire game, even had some winning chances. But in Armageddon, he said, all right, I already messed up in game 4. I don't want to, you know, try and grab too much and then lose everything. So Magnus wins. He wins the Armageddon. He wins the match, and he's the AI Cup Division 1 winners champion until until we reach the grand final, of course. So yeah. That's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Maxime, and also now you see the reason behind why in this line Queen to C7 is the preferred move, not Bishop to B7, because you see it simply stops Knight to D6 with check. So there you have it. I would like to thank eBay Numismatics, the Brooders on Spotify, George De Gregorio, Jonathan Johnson, and Robert Arathun for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you want a chance at playing Alireza Firouzja, first link in the description below. See you soon.